Hey there, landscape designer. I'm Charlene Gray. Welcome to Landscape Elevation, where I talk about all things landscape design, geared toward those of you who are landscape design entrepreneurs, whether you're just getting started in your side hustle or you've been in business for years. I hope the things I talk about resonate and help you on your journey as a landscape designer. Today, I'm going to show you how I trace my hand-drawn landscape design concepts in Vectorworks Landmark. So this is the third video in a series of 4. The first video I showed you how I create a base map in Vectorworks using digital drawing files from a surveyor and an architect. In the second video, I showed you how I import multiple concept sketches that I drew by hand into Vectorworks to create a digital PDF presentation package that I use for presenting to clients in order to get feedback from them so I can head in the right direction going forward with the overall layout and design. Now in today's third video, I'm going to show you how I use the tools in the Vectorworks Landmark software to trace the layout of my hand-drawn concepts. Then I'll be able to print just the clean layout and use it as the base for my hand drafting for hardscape and planting design details, which I will show you how to do in the fourth and last video of this series. So basically, step by step, I'm alternating between hand drafting and CAD drafting. And with each step, I'm essentially setting the stage for evolving my hand-drawn design into a finalized digital plan. So again, I like for my final plan to be digital so that it is easily editable when design changes are either requested by the client or the architect, or that, those edits that come up naturally during the actual building phase. So here we are. Watch me here as I trace my hand-drawn concept in Vectorworks Landmark. Okay, so here I am with my driveway concept C, which is the concept that the clients chose to move forward with. So we had our meeting and we looked at concept A. We're looking at the driveway layout and the walkway to the 3 doors. We looked at concept A, we looked at concept B, and concept C, and they chose to move forward with concept C. So my next step here is to take this hand-drawn concept, trace the hardscape lines, and then I'll be able to draw on something to create the more detailed hardscape and planting plan on my drafting table by hand without all of this, without the messiness. I just want a clean drawing. So I'm going to start with organizing this file a little better so that I am not accidentally clicking on things that I don't need to or accidentally deleting things either. So first I'll head over into the organization palette and I'm going to create a new design layer. And that's going to be called my landscape layout. And that's C, just to remind myself. And let's pull that down. And then in classes, I'm going to make a title block class, a concept, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say imports dash concept C. So that will contain the actual import. And I put the dash there because it gives me a drop down. So I will have more imports for this file. So now I know all my imports are going to be under imports. And that's what that dash did for me. And one more, and that's going to be called landscape lines. And these will be the lines that I create, that I trace over my sketch with. So I'm going to say edit properties after creation because I want to make sure that when I draw my lines there's not a fill, there's not a color fill in them, and because it just takes up time later. If I just want to draw a line, I don't need a fill. And I'm going to change the thickness to 0.25. Okay, so now I'm good. So that disappeared because in my design layers, I'm in active only. And right now my landscape layout has nothing in it. So I'm going to head over to Concept C, layer. I'm going to highlight everything. I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, and then I'm going to put that duplication over into Landscape Layout C. So that's where that is now. And while I'm here, I'm going to turn off all of the visibilities for the other imports. I can still look at them if I make them active. I'm just turning them off. So now this is all in Landscape Layout C. The other thing I want to do is head over to Classes and put these pieces into the classes I just made. So this is my title block. So I'm going to highlight all of that and over in the Object Info palette, put that into title block. The concept sheet itself, I'm going to put in imports, concept C, and then I'm going to work in my landscape lines class so that any lines I make are automatically going to go into that active class. So while I'm here, so see how when I hover over these pieces, I get the orange outline? That's basically because my cursor is making those things clickable or editable. And that's annoying when you're trying to draw and trace. So I'm going to head over to the class options and say show snap others rather than show snap modify others. So when I'm in show snap others, I can see them, but I'm not going to be able to click on them and move them accidentally. All right, so I think my file's ready. Command S to save what I've done so far. So now I'm going to head in here and start tracing. And actually, the first thing I'm going to do is head over to the base map, and I'm going to grab that footprint of the house, the architectural footprint. And I can't grab it because I have to go back over to classes and show snap modify others. Now I can click on it and I'm going to hit Command C to copy. Head back over to Layout C, click and paste. And I will drag that over, nudge it around, because, and it's all to scale. I'm all at the 1/16 scale. That's the scale I was working at when I did the base map, so that's the scale I was working at when I drew my concept. And so now everything's nicely to scale. I don't have to scale anything. All right, so I've got my new footprint in there. Just nudging that around. Okay, so back over in classes, I'm going to go back to show snap so that I can't move that footprint now. All right, I'm in landscape lines, I'm in there, I'm good. All right, now I'm going to start tracing. So grabbing tools from the basic palette and just tracing my lines. The best I can. And I can go back and edit these if I find that my curve is off. I'm a stickler about my curves. And so you can see how I'm tracing over a pretty sketchy looking concept. Whoops. Hello. Which can be, I guess, challenging when you don't have one solid line to trace over. I guess I've been doing this long enough that it doesn't bother me. But I think I also know that I can come back in and edit these the way I need to. So it's just, I don't know, not a big deal. I actually prefer the sketchiness when I'm presenting to clients because they tend to take very final, if you have a drawing that looks very polished and complete, they tend to think that it's not editable, and I don't know. I get a better response from people when things are still sketchy because they, nothing looks finalized yet, and it looks, it still looks like it's in edit mode, sketchiness. All right, so I just traced the roadway and that driveway, and now let's just see what that looks like. When I turn off the concept C, that's the line I have. And you can see I totally need to clean these up. So just do that a little right now. If I double click and pull, so I'm just helping my curve so that it's not weirdly bubbly anywhere. And I will say that working with these curves in Vectorworks takes practice. Getting them the way you want them just takes some practice. And all right, I think that's good for now. That's as far as I'll go. So I'll turn my concept back on. One thing I think that would help is if I make this concept a little lighter. So I'm going to make the concept the active class, and I'm going to head over, highlight it first, and I'm going to head over and change the opacity of it. I'm going to click that down a little. So there, that's a little better. Okay. Back into landscape lines. I just have a few more lines to draw. Oh, you know what? I'm going to outline that shed. And I'm going to outline this walkway. Oh shoot, I was in the wrong. Oh, I was in the angle. I want to be in Bezier. All right, I gotta delete that one. Okay. So I can get my curve on there. This is a very, even when I was drawing this, it was, drawing it by hand, that curve is very slight. As is this one. And the other thing I'm trying to do is keep a minimum width up here. So I can double check the minimum widths I have along the walkway once I get the rest of these lines in. Okay. Let's turn off the concept and see what we're looking at. Whoops. Cool. All right. So I could go in and change, maybe I will do this actually. I'm gonna highlight all of this walkway edge, and I'm gonna change that from black to a dark gray, just so I can see my hierarchy. This shed, I'm gonna make a little bit thicker line weight. And now I'm going to clean up these curves. Not bad, really. I'm happy with that for now. All right, so now I want to check my minimum widths. So I'm going to grab my tape measure and check that width. I wanted this to be at least 5 feet wide, and it is 5 feet, almost 1 inch. That's great. Now I'll check this one. 411. All right. So let's tackle one of these sides. And in case you're wondering what my plan is, 5, yes. Okay. So the walkway does actually go right through the driveway, and the idea is to have this be a design visual detail. So the guests, the public people, would park over here, and they'll walk through to come down to the studio. And so it's a visual guide, but it's also it's inviting. It when you have a change in material like that, it helps people know that things were intentional, and that you're intentionally being led into this property. And actually I haven't even shared with you, but so this client, this studio is open to the public, and they otherwise live in this building. So they wanted a space for people to be able to park their cars and not have those cars be right in their dooryard where they park their own cars. And they also wanted to somehow invite them into the studio, even though it feels awkward, walking into, if you're someone from the public walking towards someone's house, it feels a little awkward. So we're trying to help them feel more comfortable with this very intentional guiding of the walkway. So, okay. The other thing I want to do is just trace some of these existing trees. I'm going to grab the circle tool and just give them a little circle, just so that when I'm drawing, I know where these, when I'm drawing by hand, I know where these approximate trees are. And I think these trees don't exist. I threw those in during my concept. So I'm going to leave them out for now, because I don't know that's exactly where I want them to be. Any trees, that is. So the other thing I want to do here, when I'm tracing, I have the opportunity to double check minimum distances. So I checked my minimum distance in my walkway. The other thing I want to do is double check my minimum distance for this parking area. Minimum width, so 2211. So 22 feet is a pretty good width for parking 2 cars side by side. I'm gonna just bump that out a tiny bit to make it a full 23, to give them a little extra space. So we're over 23 there, we're good. And the other cool thing we can do is draw sight lines out that come out of doors and windows, and that also lead down primary circulation routes. So I'm going to draw in some of those primary, those sight lines. And I'm going to start with just the line tool. I'll change how they look later. So one super primary sight line is from this studio door out to that parking. So that's a sight line. Out of the garage is a sight line in a few directions. You have between these 2 doors, the doors don't exactly line up, but there is they'll still have a sight line. Let's see, out of the kitchen window, you're standing back here in the kitchen, so you don't get a ton of visual that way, but you will definitely have a sight line with the way this is structured with this driveway. You'll have a sight line right down the driveway. So I might have to help that with my planting plan. And the other thing, so this new office space, this window I'm not totally worried about. Well, I guess I am a little bit. All right, looking out that window, this way. I'm definitely worried about that. And I'm worried about this window even more. So when I look out that window, I'm looking that way and this way. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So I'm gonna highlight all of these and just make them a different color. Maybe like a peach. And I'm gonna give it a dotted line. So that when I print this out, I'll show you what it looks like. Oops. When I print this out, this is what I'll see. And as you can see, the sight lines where they connect, where one crosses another, wherever they're headed in those directions, that is super helpful for my planting design. The other thing I want to do is put them in their own class. So while they're right here, I'm going to add a class called Sightlines. Oh, whatever. And I'll highlight them now and put them into my Sightline class. Okay, so now I can turn them off when I don't want to see them anymore. Just like that. Okay, so let's turn my concept back on. And there was, oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to do, and that was, so this hashed line and this hashed line, they wanted to create an arbor over, so yes, so there is a connecting piece of walkway here. So you can walk straight from this door to that door. But it's going to be like stepping stones. You know, it's really just for them to, if they had to go from door to door, walk across some stepping stones. So that's going to be a detail that I bring to life on paper because I don't want a solid walkway. But I'm just going to, I'll gesture to it here. Whoa, that does not line up. Well, I guess it doesn't need to. But if I wanted to, I mean, I can have that go crooked. But for now, I'm not going to. I'm going to keep them straight, and I'll tweak that line as I do the details. So I'm going to make those gray like these are. And so we have another cross through there. Can you see that? So where this crosses through, that's cool. Okay, I might keep the line in between the walkway line just because that's kind of indicative of what I have going on up here. So I'm gonna leave that. That could be an interesting, another detail. So the thing I'm not going to do is draw in that arbor. It's because it's just gonna mess up, you know, not mess up. It's gonna make my layout drawing just a little too crowded. So I'm gonna add it in later. Because really I'm focused on detailing out the hardscape and detailing the plantings, and I don't need a lot of mucky muck. That would be the last thing to draw anyway. Since it's closer to the sky, it would get drawn last, and it would look, you know, so that it appears as though it's above everything else, which it is. Okay, so now I need to, well, I'm done with that. I'm done with tracing for now. Now I need to adjust my title block. So I'm going to make title block my active class. I'm going to go in and I'm going to call this the entrance layout base, because this is just for me. I'm not giving this to clients. This is for me to draw on. And I'm going to say it's a week later. It took us a week to get through meeting and, you know, me to sit down and work on this. So let's see how this looks when I go to print it. So I've got my base. I'm going to move that actually. Oh wait, I'm going to go to show snap modify others. I'm going to turn that on so I can move everything. Let's center that a little better. and hit Command P, open in preview, and that is what I would be printing. Looks good to me. So what I'm going to do now is actually print it. And so in my last video you saw how I made sheet drawings, or I did a viewport and I turned it into a sheet, which were these things, these sheet layers, and I did a batch print. I'm not going to do that for the drawing that I'm making for myself. I'm just going to say Command P. I'm going to save it as a PDF, and I'm going to call it entrance layout base, and I'll save it. So I'll save it as a PDF, and then I'll print that, and this was at 11 by 17, and then I'll start drawing my start planning out my plantings and my hardscape, and then I'll have that to show my clients. Okay, so that is how I take the client selected concept sketch and trace the overall layout of it using the Vectorworks tools. The next step for me is to print out the clean looking layout onto paper. Then I lay it down on my drafting table and use it as the base for designing the details of the hardscape and the planting design. So next week you can see the fourth and final Vectorworks demo video of this series, where I'll show you my imported hardscape and planting designs and how I use the Vectorworks tools to duplicate these digitally, so that in the end I have a totally digital, editable landscape design. Okay, thank you so much for joining me and watching Landscape Elevation. If this demo video was helpful to you, please let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, whatever it is you do. And remember, I love hearing from folks in the landscape design community. If you're a landscape designer and you have questions or a conversation to start, please share them in the comments or reach out to me directly from my website, landscapeelevation.com, where you can find both my free PDF guides that I've created to help you on your journey. One is the example client questionnaire, and also I have my 5 steps to prepare for a successful landscape design. Okay, thank you again, take care, and I hope you have a really great week.